I'm back. Of course you wouldn't know I was back because you haven't seen the first video that I made, but unfortunately you never will because I deleted the entire recording because I'm an idiot. I cringe at myself sometimes. It's currently like almost 3 a.m. on May 29th, I think, technically 29th. And I've decided to finally start my explorations project. And I am doing comedy, forgot to mention, because I fancy myself an actor. I want to focus on comedy. I do a lot of improv. It's one of my favorite things about acting is improv and coming up with jokes on the spot and making it entertaining. For a lot of people, it's just like a God-given skill. Like you just are born with a lot of charisma and you know how to please an audience, and that's just you, that's who you are, and you need no work. And if that's you, I freaking love you. I don't think I was born with that like charisma, that like YouTuber sort of essence. So I researched comedy to try and like I guess try and balance it out with skill, you know, things about comedy that you can learn and review and practice and make habits so that maybe you're not naturally funny, but you're not unfunny either. I'm focusing on strengthening my comedic skills, my understanding of different types of humor, how to apply them, how to even get started if you're like doing comedy specifically, like how to make like a comedy sketch, and how I can use this info to strengthen my improv game. So I found through a lot of my research that basically there are 9 different types of comedy. Things like dark humor, potty humor, absurd humor, there's sarcastic humor, self-deprecating humor. After researching all that kind of researching stuff, I found myself wondering how to even start. Like you have all these kinds of comedy, right? But how do you even begin to understand how to like apply it? And the first thing that I came up with, or that I came upon in my research, was starting with a story, like writing down a bunch of like a certain situation that happened to you that you feel like has like humor potential, and working from there. I noticed that, like looking back, that's what a lot of comedians do on Netflix. They go and they talk about like a funny thing that happened to them, and they work from there. So I thought for this video I could pull out a little vlogger style and react to a Netflix comedy. It'll be a lot of analysis and not a lot of humor, so sorry if that's ironic or boring. Like I'm kind of doing the opposite of being funny right now, which is kind of ironic. I'm just kind of like ruining the experience of Trevor Noah's stand-up with my like lame analysis, but hey, I don't know, that's ironic. That could be funny. I was gonna grab my coffee because it's 3 a.m. and bitches gotta stay awake. Okay. You sit there, be a good boy, and begin. Okay. So the first thing I noticed is that he didn't start with a story from his own life. He started with like an anecdote. I was actually really expecting something from his own life because I feel like that's what most comedians do, right, Calvin? He started with an anecdote. I wasn't expecting it, but it's working out really well. Like it feels kind of random, but that's part of his humor, I think. Like he's using absurd humor by providing us with an absurd situation, and it's funny. He's talking about almost running into cars and kind of mocking it by mocking, I don't know, the expectations of the situation, you know, saying things like, come here, I'll tell you a secret, you know. It's kind of, it's like a mockumentary of sorts. Alright, let's keep going. Okay, so now he's used a personal story. He's like talking about what traffic lights are like back in Africa and how that's so different from in the US. And I think it's such a funny comparison. So I guess that's another technique he's using, is comparing and contrasting, you know, different things, different countries, what we may not be familiar with, what might sound absurd to us but isn't. Yeah. So yeah, that was another skill he's putting. He's used like a very specific story. Like I guess he kind of worked his way into using like personal stories instead of like he introduced himself using like kind of essay format, like like, hypothetical situation, and then he got into like a real story from his own life where he was like walking on the street, and the light goes, you know, it's so you can walk across the street, and this man goes out in front of him, and he's trying to stop him, and you know, it's like the car's about to hit him, but he says, you know, the man said, "It's okay, there's a light." I could not relate more to that man. Like, every fiber in my body is people telling me, "What the fuck were you doing? You shouldn't have crossed the street at that moment." Like, that is who I am as a person. That's the definition of me. So I found that funny. So I guess, yeah, he's being relatable now, but he's pointing out something that I feel like a lot of us are, like, we just look past, which is interesting. Like, he's pointing out a really relatable situation and then turning it in, and he's questioning it. Like, he's providing, like, I don't know. He's being, like, I don't know, I guess questioning. I can't think of words tonight. It's like 3 a.m. I shouldn't even have energy, and I'm jacked up on coffee. So yeah, he's really pointing out the absurdity of something that a lot of us do all the time. Like, I don't really pay attention to whether cars are around me. I'm the bitch that says, "You gotta stop for me because I'm crossing the street now, bitch." So I'm gonna close out here. That's it. This has been great. This has been fun. To close out my thoughts again about Trevor Noah and Afraid of the Dark, I think his humor, it's very similar to what's kind of trendy in comedy nowadays, using anecdotes, using personal stories, making fun of things, mocking things, sarcasm, self-deprecation. It's all real fun and jazzy, and knowing it by labels and by type of comedy, by like research, feels different than just picking up on it by watching it and subconsciously internalizing it, I guess. So yeah, I think I'll include a lot more of that in my comedy palette, per se, for the future. I will probably end up doing a lot more slapstick because I think big expressions and big reactions in general make, like, everything more funny. So I think I'll probably work to, like, practice it and, like, work it into everything so that it comes kind of naturally to me. Whereas, like, kind of nowadays, I guess I'm, like, generally an animated person, but I could get better, you know. And I think I will use more self-deprecation because I kind of censor myself when I'm being self-deprecating, because I feel like you say jokes like that, but your heart is crying sometimes, you know, and I don't want to do that to myself. But perhaps a bitch can be confident enough to laugh at themselves. So yeah, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna see how it goes. Most comedians are great at it. If I want to be better at comedy, I should try it. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. That's what I've learned. I feel like learning it by researching it helps internalize it, and I'm gonna do a lot more practicing it. And yeah, this has been a fun project, so yeah. Hope you enjoyed. Say bye, Calvin. Say bye. Say bye. Wait to the camera. Bye. 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 Hello. This is super awkward. Let me clarify why. So I didn't really think about what my topic would mean in the future when I chose what to research for the Explorations project. So I chose comedy, thinking that would be really cool. Little did I know that I would have to perform a comedy sketch later as a part of my grade. This is gonna be the cringiest thing you have ever seen, I promise you. I'm not funny. No. I mean, I can learn about comedy all I want, but I'm not gonna be funny. Sure, I now have some, like, more tricks up my sleeve, but I am not going to be funny. No. So I'm sorry in advance. I'm gonna do my best. Here it goes. So I told this joke at a camp 1 year ago, roughly, a little bit, and it got some good laughs, so here we go. So at that camp, we have drag night, and that's because everyone at the camp is gay, because it's a theater camp, but that's besides the point. We have drag night, And so I dressed up in my brother's old khaki slacks and like a t-shirt. But the thing is, my brother and I, we used to be the same size in pants before we hit puberty and I became biologically female. So naturally I don't quite fit the same way into his pants that I used to. So that caused problems for me later. But that's besides the point for now. What happened was, during drag night, you get up if you're confident enough and you go up in costume and you walk down the runway, you do like poses and stuff, and it's a total blast. So I did that. It was my turn. I got up and I dropped down to do this like funky pose or whatever. It wasn't that great really, but I dropped down and I hear this shh. I don't know how to explain what happened in my head when I heard that sound. I think you can imagine what that means, but what that meant to me was that my entire ass was hanging out for the whole camp to see. This might sound wrong, but the first thing that came into my head when I heard that sound was, whatever. I'm not sure really what to say about that. I think that says that I have confidence. I'm not sure. I did not give one crap that the entire camp was staring at my butt at that moment. The second thing that went through my head, and this just keeps getting worse, was, "You're welcome everyone, I have America's ass." I don't know what that says about me either. Basically what happened was I spent, I don't know what led me to do this, if it was the combination of those two thoughts or what, but I spent the entire rest of the runway just bopping on the ground like that, in a circles, to the end of the runway. I didn't put a lot of thought into it, but that's what I did. So I would say that's probably the most reckless thing I've ever done. I hope that was funny. I don't really know. It was probably kind of cringy, so we'll hope that I get points for being bold with my story. Thank you. I'm sorry.